Hello everyone, a very good afternoon to you and welcome to the Adriatic coast here in Italy. It is the Misano World Circuit Marco Simoncelli that hosts round 2 of the Ferrari Challenge for 2023. Wow, what an image that is of our Coppa Shell grid forming with 488 Challenge Evos and of course their drivers and lots of people down there on the grid for their first race of the weekend. Qualifying done and dusted. A number of drivers who are out of position following qualifying for various reasons, which we will tell you about when we get involved in the race action. What it does do, it guarantees us that there is going to be quite some activity, I feel, in the 32nd race to come. And what a beautiful location for a racing circuit. What that didn't reveal was an early morning run and swim in the beautiful waters that accompany the coast. Make of that what you will. As you can see, the car's ready to leave behind the Richard Mills safety car in but a few moments from now. This is where we're at, and we invite you to follow us on @Ferrari Races, be part of the Ferrari family for Ferrari Challenge Round 2 and indeed for the entire season. And what a season we have in prospect for you this year. The air temperature at the moment is a really rather lovely 19 degrees. It feels a bit warmer than that, if I'm honest with you. Track temperature 24 degrees and a little 6 kilometre per hour wind, which is making those wildflowers flow just a little bit in that 6 kilometre per hour wind that is just cooling us really rather nicely here in Misano. So down there on track are lots and lots of people, and right in the midst of it is our presenter, Ludovica. Good afternoon to you.
Hi everyone and good afternoon. The Ferrari Challenge Great Journey to off adrenaline and show continue. We are here in Misano, the Motor Valley, the Italian Motor Valley, for the second round of Ferrari Challenge Europe. There is a great atmosphere. All the riders and all the drivers and the teams are ready to start for this race 1 of Coppa Shell. But now let's go to the poleman, Axel Sartinger. Good afternoon, Axel, and congratulations for the pole position.
Thank you. Thank you.
And compared yesterday's time, you've been improved by a second. You have found a good feeling with the car for today, for the race?
Yes, absolutely. Yesterday I had some problems with the tires, and today was perfect. And if not the red flag in qualifying, I could do even quicker. So all fine. At the end it was narrow, but it was enough. So I'm on pole and try to make the best out of it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Back to you guys.
Axel Sartingen then, who not only pole position, but of course gained a point for that pole position, which means he now leads the points by 2. So he needs to build that cushion. There is Boris Gideon then, and Boris Gideon, who is the best of the Shell&AM drivers, and looking into the crash helmet of Thomas Gosner. That's a lovely image, isn't it? And you can see the focus on the face of Thomas Gosner ahead of the race. Of course, we will bring you the grid in full. Do bear in mind there are Shell drivers and there are Shell&AM drivers, and we'll tell you how to identify those in just a moment. Meantime, let's go back to Ludovica.
Yes, we're back on the grid for hear all the voices of our protagonists in this trophy, and we hear another driver who start on the front. We are here with Willem van der Worm. Willem, congratulations for your start for today. What do you expect from the race?
Well, it's always hard to predict what to expect. The most important part is to try to survive the start. A lot of good drivers around us. So if I can bring the car home where I start after the first lap, I'll take it from there. I'll be very happy.
Okay, thank you. Have a good race.
Thank you very much.
Willem
Back
van
to
der
you
Vorm.
guys.
Thank you. Willem van der Vorm then, a fine competitor and done a very good job in qualifying as well. Putting it P2 right alongside Axel Sartingen. This is Christian Kinch. And He is, as you can see, qualified P6 within group. Coppa Shell drivers all have yellow sun strips atop the windscreen. The Coppa Shell&AM drivers have black strips across the top of their windscreen. Got to say hi to Christian's daughter Sabina, who is here this afternoon watching Christian's every move. And well, expect him to do some moving, frankly, from P6 within group. He has Alexander Nussbaumer ahead of him. And as I said, we will bring you the grid in full in due course. And there you can see the 136 car of Alexander Nussbaumer. Alexander was last year's Coppa Shell&AM champion and therefore gets elevated into the Coppa Shell Championship this year. And I had a lovely conversation with him and was asking him about the Valencia weekend, where he said, you know what, Dave, Valencia was all about the fact that I can race really, really well. What I need to up my game in is qualifying. So he's making great strides in trying to do that. He's qualified P5 today. We'll see what Alexander Nussbaumer can do from there. Okay, let's take a look at the track now. This is the Marco Simoncelli Misano World Circuit. There is Sector 1, very technical sector. And then Sector 2, which is less technical. And the compromise in terms of the setup is, do you set the car up for Sectors 1 and 3, which are the technical bits, or do you do it for the power part, which is the middle sector? Various drivers have various different answers. And you can see there are 16 turns, 6 of them left, 10 of them are right. 4.236 kilometers is the track length. It's about an hour and a half from Bologna, 2.25 hours from Florence or so to make it here to the Misano Circuit on the Adriatic coast.
Per primo ci aspettiamo di divertirci. Siamo qua sempre per migliorare tutti gli anni, E ti piace il mondo, devo dire. È veramente bello girare con in questo ambiente Ferrari, È bellissimo per noi. Le macchine vanno benissimo e è bello anche che tutte le macchine vanno uguali, perciò si vede direttamente la differenza del pilota, no? E questa è una bellissima cosa qua. È un'atmosfera veramente piacevole, per questo chiamiamola famiglia Ferrari, perché ci fa veramente piacere essere qua.
Sono molto orgoglioso di essere in questa famiglia così numerosa della Ferrari e mi trovo molto bene. Per la terza stagione speriamo di fare un risultato meglio dell'anno scorso. Oggi abbiamo fatto dei cambiamenti alla vettura per migliorare il tempo e credo che siamo sulla strada giusta. Col team, il Ferrari, tutto bene.
I think I'm now already 19 years in the championship, and I think it's time to be on P1 at the end of the season. The pace is good. I had a very good race in Valencia, 2 times third place, and I was fighting for P1. It's really a very nice competition in the end, and much professional than it was when I started, and I still like it.
Just a small selection of our drivers there, sharing their thoughts, and lovely to hear from them, including Pino Frascaro and indeed von Skeltermar as well. So lovely to hear from them. 30 seconds away then from the start sequence getting underway then, which will, as always, be a rolling start with the Richard Mille safety car will lead those vehicles away for the start of race 1. Thomas Gosner, of course, the other driver that we spoke to earlier on, and it was lovely to hear their views. As promised, here comes the grid in full then. Axel Sardigan, he nailed that pole position. Alongside him is Willem van der Vorm. Then it is Thomas Gosner, who we heard from earlier, and von Skeltermar. They occupy the second row of our grid. Alexander Nussbaumer and Christian Kinch were fighting over P5 and P6. That's the third row of our grid. ahead of Christian Herdvipper and Roger Grols, who I dare say I consider to be maybe out of position. Keep an eye on him. Eric Chung and Peter Christensen going from P9 and P10, two Formula Racing drivers, together on the fifth row of the grid. Manuel Agostner and John Dillon, another couple of drivers that perhaps are potentially out of position. Expect to see some overtaking from row 6. Then we get our Coppa Shell&AM drivers with Boris Gideon and Martinus Richter, returning Martinus Richter. They go from P13 and 14 on the overall grid with Kirk Beervold and Motohiko Isazaki, once again proving how good they are, going from what is effectively P3 and P4 in class, but P15 and P16 overall. Henrik Kamstrup and Stefano Marazzi are on P17 and 18 with Giuseppe Romelli and a good quali from Pino Frascaro. They are P19 and P20. It's Tommy Lindroth and Roland Hurtner on the next row of the grid. It's row 11, and as we go to row 12, we find Mutlo Tazev, who will be going from P23 for the Emil Frey team. And there we join the Richard Meals safety car, and high time to introduce the birthday boy who is alongside me here, Nico Spalek. This has got all the makings of being a supreme race.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the competitive balance in Coppa Shell particularly is immense. And we can see, as you already said, some drivers out of position, and that's just by dint of being 1 or 2 tenths of their usual pace. And that is something we expect to continue during the race. So make no mistake, this is going to be frantic, this is going to be close, and especially among the top 6 or 7 drivers, don't put it beyond anybody to make some overtakes. Manuela Agostner, keep an eye on her.
I agree with you. It's not very often I disagree with you. There are a number of drivers to keep your eyes on. Some spectators here to enjoy the racing action and also to enjoy the really rather lovely weather that we have here on the Rimini coast, which is beautiful cars weaving from side to side, despite the temperature, of course, still trying to generate some temperature into those tyres, because the first sequence of this 16-turn track, which is turns 1, 2, and 3, are something of a funnel, I think it's fair to say. Giorgio Sonagiotto, you can see there, who is driver coach to Manuela Agostner. He, of course, will be trying to propel Manuela through the order of cars as we're into the third sector now, what we call the stadium section of this Misano World Circuit, Marco Simoncelli, which is one of the 2 very technical parts of this track. And we are ready to go racing. Hold on to your hats, as I always invite you to, because Ferrari Challenge Coppa Shell Race 1 in Misano is about to get underway. Well, there was someone very, very quick out of the blocks. I think that was Roger Grols making moves very, very early on as the cars do head into this funnel now, which is the turn 1, 2, and 3 sequence. I think it's one of the drivers going very... Oh, and that is Willem van der Vorm who's gone around. Willem van der Vorm has gone around. Really good avoidance from all the other drivers. I think it's also possibly Thomas Gostner in that mix as well, or it's certainly an all-green car.
Yeah, definitely. It was Thomas Gostner who just caught the Willem van der Vorm car at the left rear. After being squeezed a little bit. There is another incident, and that may be Alexander Nussbaumer.
It is Alexander Nussbaumer. Alexander Nussbaumer, then he's been turfed out into the gravel. So whilst all that's going on, Axel Sardingen getting away really, really nicely. Von Skeltmar is up to P2 with Christian Kinch doing a brilliant job up to P3. Here is our race leader then, Axel Sardingen. There is P2, Von Skeltmar. Now, in terms of the Coppa Shell&AM drivers, it's Martinus Richter leading Kirk Beervold, and there you can see out of the car is a very disappointed Willem van der Vorm. And from what you said, Nico, I didn't see the incident. You felt that there was perhaps just a tag there. That's what sent Willem around.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you could see Thomas Gostner had to take avoiding action in an earlier battle, and safety car is being called for, so we'll have some time to sort through all of that. Now, that means Axel Sardingen's 1.6 seconds advantage will count for nothing, except for still being in the lead, but that will give us some time to pick the bones out of what had transpired in the first few turns.
Beneficiaries from that incident, Kinch, Dillon and Gostner, P3, 4 and 5, Nico, by dint of the fact that Involved in that, Thomas Goesner and Willem van der Vorm, and then also involved in an incident, we think separate potentially, Alexander Nussbaumer and Christian Herdweber.
Yeah, it looked separate, although it may have been a consequence of the avoiding action. Yeah, obviously Manuela Goesner's advantage brought about by the demise,
of course,
racecraft technically, by her father Thomas Goesner. So joy and disappointment in the Goesner family in the early goings.
Joy and pain, you're right. Now, it's Kirk Beervold that is leading in Coppa Shell&AM and Boris Gideon. Now, it was Martinus Richter that was leading just before the safety car, so just hope that neither Kirk Beervold or Boris Gideon made their moves when the safety car had been called for, because, of course, that would they would be penalised for that. But I'm not saying that did happen at all, but it's just curious that it was right at the same time, Nico. How dare I have an opinion like that?
No, but it's always, if you're a fan of a driver and you can see positions change after a safety car has been announced, you're always on the edge of your seat, and generally those penalties will be looked at, or the situations will be looked at during the safety car, and when the safety car comes in, that's generally when you have to really be scared.
Now we have a flag being flown for car number 121, which is Peter Christensen. That's a black flag with the orange disc, often called the meatball flag, and that is for some technical irregularity with that car, or a piece of panel work that is perhaps loose. So it's just a warning. It's not a penalty in any way, shape or form. And going back to that, we were talking about the fact that big beneficiaries are the likes of Kirk Beervold and Boris Gideon. Have absolutely no evidence to suggest that they made that overtake. It was just, you know, the two things happened almost at the same time. So there is Pino Frascaro, we can see in the number 140 car. And, well, the car's being led around by the Richard Mille safety car, as you can see. Right, here comes a replay of the start, Nico, and let's see if we can, as you so eloquently put it, pick the bones out of it here. We just missed the... So Thomas Goesner was on the curbs then, wasn't he? And yeah, you can see there the damage on the front of the Thomas Goesner car, and of course that was brought about by the tag that he made on Willem van der Vorm. Every driver seemed to make really good take good avoiding action. Now this is going into turn number 2. Alexander Nussbaumer was on the outside of Thomas Goesner, but to be fair, Thomas wasn't, I don't think, being squeezed by Alexander Nussbaumer.
No, not necessarily, but he had to position himself and didn't have any way to go left or right through that. So, and we didn't quite see the Alexander Nussbaumer incident in that replay, but maybe we'll get that later on.
Oh, and there you can see the reason for the meatball flag for Peter Christensen is because the rear wing is hanging off. Let's take time now to go down into the pit lane with Ludovica.
Yes, I'm here on the pit and in front of the box of Sartingen, who did a beautiful and a good start in the lap 1, and he stayed away from the incident and the crash of his components.
Absolutely, he just kept his head whilst some others were perhaps losing theirs behind, but that's exactly what you've got to do. Of course, now, as Nico made the point earlier on, where Axel has a disadvantage is he'd begun to build a little bit of a cushion, and now that cushion has completely gone away, because when you get under the safety car, then all the cars will be bunched up together again, and it will be the responsibility of Axel Sartingen to control the pace of the restart when it comes. And the incident in turns 1 and 4 is under investigation, and Peter Christensen, I believe, has come into the pit lane with that with the problem on the rear wing. Right, safety car is going to come in at the conclusion of this lap, Nico. So, exactly as I was saying, it is down now to Axel Sartingen to back them all up, and it is down to von Skelterman to try and anticipate when Axel Sartingen's going to go again.
Yeah, and we're already in the stadium section, so that has already happened, I think, and you can see Axel Sartingen has already built a lead, and I think he is going for it.
He is. He's built 5 or 6 car lengths already. It's his right to do that, absolutely. And there is Christian Kinch, and there is John Dillon then running in P4. John Dillon just taking a look at the inside of Christian Kinch, but he wasn't really close enough. Axel Sartingen nailed that restart absolutely perfectly. He knew that's what he'd got to do. Von Skelterman, in my opinion, is under some pressure now for P2 from Christian Kinch, returning to the Ferrari Challenge this year. And Christian Kinch then, and Manuel Agostner taking a look at the inside of John Dillon. Von Skeltermar runs wide. Is Christian Kinch able to take advantage? No, not quite. John Dillon under pressure in equal terms. Manuel Agostner, he's under pressure as well because Roger Grols is right behind Manuel Agostner. So lots happening in the Coppa Shell drivers in terms of the really important places as there Manuel Agostner dives. A really audacious move to the inside of John Dillon. But good gentlemanly driving from John Dillon, who allowed her through and didn't close that gap. And here comes Roger Grols trying to go around the outside. Manuela with a wider line through the double apex turn. And look at this. Absolutely brilliant stuff. And Roger Grols all the way around the outside. If he can make this stick, Nick, go, but he can't. He loses out. Now he takes a look at the inside. So John Dillon is getting it from all sides, isn't he, at the moment, having to try and hold on to that position that he occupies with his Grey Paul Nottingham car, and doing a good job, John Dillon. It's great to see him back in the Ferrari Challenge here in Europe.
Yeah, definitely. He is really under pressure, and Roger Grols hasn't given up on that. He's now trying to stay on the inside, but nothing doing through that stadium section. So he'll try and anticipate maybe going into the first sequence of turns in the chicane. And then we saw at the end of that first back straight, that's where you can dive on the inside and try and make it happen, but it leaves you vulnerable through the next few turns. So great driving there, and there are our leaders in the Coppa Shell&AM with Berwald, Gideon and Martin Richter coming together.
That plays nicely into the hands, or does it, of Martinus Richter. Has Martinus Richter been able to take advantage of that and go through? I didn't see where his car was, and there you can see the Boris Gideon car, which he's returning now. Martinus Richter, it appeared at first shot that he was taking avoiding action from those two, but it's whether he got caught in that as well as a completely innocent bystander. We will see. I have a feeling he might have done, but we will see in just a moment, because at the moment it looks like Roland Hurtner is leading. Here then, Boris Gideon then, and as we get a replay of this incident, Nico, he took a real dive to the inside, and in fairness, I'm not sure Kirk Beervolt was even aware of the fact that Boris Gideon was on the inside of him. Now, here is, if we'd have stayed with that replay a little bit longer, because you could see Martinus Richter taking to the outside, the three yellow cars together there. But I think he may have just been caught out as well, and then had such a long way round to try and get back onto the track that perhaps he wasn't able to do so. Here we can see Von Skeltermar, who's really taken the fight to Axel Sartigan now for the lead in Coppa Shell. I remind you, the Coppa Shell drivers have yellow sun strips across the top of the windscreen. The AM drivers with black sun strips. I think there's a problem for Christian Kinch because Manuel Agostner has gone through. I can see Christian Kinch slowing. So that will change the positions for P3, 4 and 5, and sure enough, Christian Kinch has dropped down to P7 now, Nico. Going into that final turn, it just looked like Christian was slowing, and Manuel Agostner really just went through without any problems at all. Now, the safety car period, we're being told, is under investigation. Well, any news about that we'll bring to you. Nico, what do you make of that?
Yeah, definitely, and Christian Kinch hasn't crossed the timing line at the end of the lap, so he must have come to a total, he has come into the pits, so absolutely, he had an overall best first sector, so whatever problem came, it came very suddenly, because he was still going at full speed, faster than anybody through the first sector. Wow, I mean, that's been a change and some. Roland Hurtner is leading in the M's. Martinus Richter, P2. Motohiko Isozaki, P3.
And they're two very, very quick drivers, aren't they? So what that does, it proves the point then that Martinus Richter, who had to take the scenic route around Boris Gideon and Kirk Beervolt, he wasn't able to get back onto the track without Roland Hurtner having gone past him.
No, exactly. It first looked like he could just go out on the outside, but then one of the cars involved in the incident, and I think it was Boris Gideon, slid backwards, and that basically meant he had to run out of room. And now we've got a drive-through penalty for car number 161, and that is Thomas Gostner for that.
The Willem van der Worm incident.
Indeed, and that's no big surprise, I guess.
It's no big surprise, and actually it does nothing for Willem van der Worm, whose race is over as well.
No, absolutely. Roland Hurtner, meanwhile, who is leading in the M's, remember, he came from P10 in class, P10 of 11, so from the very back, and now we got another penalty, and that is for Boris Gideon. Well, that's another incident that we saw, and probably not a huge shock there either, but wow, with those penalties, announced that the drive-through penalties still have to be taken, but that means we can focus on what happened and what's going to happen here. And Roland Hürtner, again, from the very back of the grid, is leading in class and is going very, very strong.
And he's got a seconds margin over Martinus Richter, so Martinus Richter is going to be the one to keep an eye on, and perhaps Motohiko Isozaki as well, who's about the same distance behind in P3 in class. Meantime, von Skeltermar has definitely not given up on trying to unseat Axel Sartingen. There's Eric Chung, who's running P6 in Coppa Shell. And you can see those drivers, the big beneficiary. Roland Hürtner, look, from the start of the race, up 15 places. 15 places, Nico, in the Ferrari Challenge. That's almost unheard of. Ludovica, what do you make of that?
Yes, good afternoon. We are back on the grid. I'm here in front of the von Skelterman box because there is a great atmosphere by all the team, because Fons have a great race, and in this moment he is in the second position. And I will remember you that Fons start in the fourth position. So he is fighting for the podium.
Absolutely, he is fighting for the podium, but in the meantime, there's lots of other fights that are going on here as well, as you can see. All these Coppa Shell&AM drivers that you can see, all line astern with Alexander Nussbaumer. There is the 124 car that we are watching, and that, of course, is the Kirk Beerwold car. Roland Hürtner, of course, in the livery that's very like Alexander Nussbaumer. Axel Sartingen continuing to lead, but von Skeltermar is keeping him keen, Nico, and keeping him mean, because the gap between P1 and P2 is merely 4/10. So very little between the two of them, and it's just a question of where Fons could make a move if he wants to make a move. Is he better off banking P2? It's really difficult to overtake. There are only a couple of places, Nico, where it really potentially can work here. At the Misano World Circuit, and Axel Sartingen knows how to make that car just a little bit wider than it is, sticks his elbows out metaphorically, but Fons, with the shark's teeth, is ready to pounce and ready to bite, in my opinion, because he is looking very lively indeed, Nico.
Yeah, absolutely. He looks like he is significantly faster. He just had the fastest lap of the race on the previous way around, and as we can see, a Giuseppe Romelli penalty being announced further back. There is von Skeltermar trying a little bit of a different line. Now, he said in the pre-race he wants to win.
Yes.
P1 is where he wants to be, while Axel Sartingen is saying exactly the same thing. So neither of them will happily settle for P2. So expect Fons with pretty much exactly half race distance remaining to put the pressure, but put it at the right moment.
And we're coming into this turn 1, 2, 3 sequence. Axel Sartingen, and you can see how possibly, Nico, what has happened here is that maybe Hertha Racing Lueg Sportivo have set the car up slightly differently for Axel Sartingen, and von Skeltermar's team, Kessel Racing, maybe have set the car up a little bit different, so that, you know, perhaps Axel's car is much more suited to the technical parts, whereas Fons perhaps out-and-out speed on the middle sector, which is the power sector. Whether his car is right for that one, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, certainly he's got the drag and the slipstream that helps helps Fons. But, you know, it's very nice getting close behind. Getting past is a very different matter.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
if you can't be right behind the other car on the exit of a turn, then probably all that excess speed won't count for anything unless the other driver makes a mistake. And Axel Sartingen does a lot of things. He does a lot of things very well. Making mistakes is not high on that list. Manuela Gostin, as we can see, had a forgettable qualifying. She's up into P3. Quite a little bit behind those two.
But of course, the more these two fight, the more it's allowing Manuela Gostner to get ever closer. Oh no, there are problems for the 190 car of Roland Hürtner, Nico. Now, Roland Hürtner was leading, of course, in Coppa Shell&AM. Now it is Martinus Richter, Kirk Beerwold, and Motohiko Isozaki that take the P1, 2, 3. That, to me, looks like a retirement, potentially, for Roland Hürtner.
Yeah, and it looks like a position which may not be judged to be safe by our race control, so that would potentially bring in the safety car back into play, which would potentially bring Manuela Gostner back into play for this battle. So it's very interesting what will happen over the next 30 seconds or so. And there is the safety car.
Whoa, you could not have written the script, Nico, for storytelling any better, which is what our game is here. Roland Hurtner for Charles Pozzi GT Racing then out of the race, and where he's positioned the car unfortunately means that we do have this safety car. There's Kirk Beervold, and this is there you can see the smoke beginning to come off the back of that Roland Hurtner car, which means he has had to retire the car and park it up. Franz Hengstler to the left-hand side of the screen, you can see there, looking on. So now the fight with the two yellow cars, Martinus Richter and Kirk Beervold, you could see going on whilst we were watching Roland Hurtner's car. It looked to me like Beervold had got to the inside of Richter and gone through, but obviously Richter has taken that position back again.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw Franz Hengstler, who's a teammate, obviously, of Roland Hurtner for the Charles Pozzi team. And I mean, for Hurtner, it's like from the bottom to the very front, and now big drum. And you can see the smoke was coming before that overtake came, so it wasn't the result, but it was the reason why those two went by so easily. So
he has experienced every emotion during the course of the first half of this race, hasn't he? Extraordinary stuff. Now, you made the very valid and very valuable point that now, of course, the cars are all going to get squeezed up again. Now, Axel Sardigan did a brilliant restart last time around. Will he be able to do the same again, or will Fonds be wise to it? The big beneficiary here could be Manuel Agostner and also John Dillon.
Oh, of course, and Roger Grols.
Oh, yes.
And then, as you said, in the AMs, it's Martinus Richter, Kirk Beervold, Isozaki, Kamstrup. I mean, we're almost more like we were at the beginning of the race than we were before, after the last safety car. So lots of things happening in this race. The lap chart of that is going to be very colorful and very interesting. Looks like the Alps from here, or San Marino.
The conclusion of the show is going to be something else, isn't it? Because we're almost into the final 10 minutes of this. Axel Sardigan, Fons Skelterman, Manuel Agostner, the top three for our Shell drivers, for our Shell&AM drivers. It is Martinus Richter, Kirk Beervold, and Motohiko Isozaki. And it's lighting up behind the safety car right now, because the Roland Hurtner car has got to be put into a position of safety before we can go back to racing once again. Wave double yellows from the marshalling team around the Misano World Circuit, Marco Simoncelli. Safety car is out on track, leading the cars around. We're on board with that Richard Mille safety car right now. Axel Sardigan, he'll either be breathing a sigh of relief, Nico, that he can at least take a rest for a couple of moments, not that he needs it, but he is going to have to do that restart all over again. Let's go back into the pit lane with Ludovica.
Yes, I'm back on the pit, and I'm in front of the Manuel Agostner box. As you can see, all the team is very attention for her race, because he made a good race. In this moment, she is fighting for the podium. Manuela had yesterday a good feeling with her car, and she made a good free practice. But in the morning, during the qualifying practice, for a technical problem, she had a difficult qualification. But now she is demonstrating that she have a good feeling with her car, and he making a good race.
Thank you so much, Ludovica. Yes, Manuel Agostner then is certainly going to be very, very happy with the P3 she has at the moment, but she will not be satisfied with that, because she can see a P1 opportunity. All that's stopping her taking P1 is actually a couple of fairly good drivers in Fons Skelterman and Axel Sardigan. So what will she be able to do about that? We will find out. Martinus Richter then returning to the Ferrari Challenge this weekend. I was in conversation with him during the week, Nico, and he said, yeah, it's going to be good to be back, and it'll be doubly good to be back if he can maintain that P1 position. However, Kirk Beervold and Motohiko Isozaki may have something to say about that, because they are languishing behind in P2 and P3, and any opportunity they've got to try and take that P1 away from the 111 numbered car, they will certainly do that. No word yet in terms of when the safety car is coming in. One thing I can say to you, Nico, is that as we stand with 8 3/4 minutes left on the track, the safety car will come in at the end of this lap. It's not quite going to be a dash for cash, but it's going to be blooming close, because it's not going to be so many racing laps.
No, 4 or 5 maximum that we can expect for the remainder in green flag conditions. So Now the drivers have to prepare, and last time the safety car was announced to come in very, very late. It's a little bit earlier now, so Axel Sartingen will think about it. Von Skeltema will think about it. The lights are still on, and they will extinguish at the end of second sector, and that's just a few moments away. Everybody will be ready for this restart. And we've seen how you can gain and lose so many positions in a matter of turns. This is going to be tense inside those cockpits. It's also hot, but the tension is high.
You can see in the middle of that picture Björn Grossman, former Ferrari Challenge champion, who's here coaching Axel Sartingen. He'll be on the radio to him saying, keep calm, Axel, keep calm. And Axel actually drives with his head. He's very, very clever, very sensible. And you can see he's backing them up now. Von Skeltema, Manuel Agostner, John Dillon, they've got to try and anticipate when Axel is going to give it 100% on the loud pedal and put the accelerator pedal through the floor, which is what he does now. It's not quite such a dramatic restart from Sartingen on this occasion. Von Skeltema is right with him. He's in the slipstream of Axel Sartingen now. They're heading towards turns 1, 2, and 3. Skeltema takes a look at the inside. Discretion, the better part of valor. He thinks better of it. Manuel Agostner is also there trying to take advantage too. And joining into the mix, of course, is John Dillon and Roger Grols. So all those drivers making their way through the first sequence of turns pretty well. Roger Grols then on the inside of John Dillon. Is he going to make that move stick, or is John Dillon going to close the door? He does.
Oh yeah, and that maybe leaves Roger Grols vulnerable to Eric Chung. No, he continues in his P5 position, but that was close. Kurt Berwald has made it past Martinus Richter, it seems. Didn't quite see how it happened, but it certainly looks like it did happen.
Job to tell with two blooming identical yellow cars, isn't it? But you're right. Kurt Berwald is now registering as being P1 and Martinus Richter P2. So Sartingen holding off for Von Skeltema and holding off Manuel Agostner as well. And Kurt Berwald and Martinus Richter and Motohiko Isasaki, they're P1, 2, and 3.
Oh, and Roger Grols is being given a 10-second time penalty for overtaking, going off the track in turns 1 and 2. So he left the track and gained an advantage, and that's being adjudged to have been too much, and that will mean he'll drop behind Eric Chung and potentially others.
Right, let's go back down to Ludovica once again.
Yes, guys, I want to give you an important date because Von Skeltema, that who in this moment is in the second position, registered in on the 7th lap the best and the fastest lap in 1:38 and 4. So this is important because all Team Kessel work a lot in this weekend.
Thank you, Ludovica. Martinus Richter wants that lead back in the Coppa Shell&AM. And you can see really chasing Kurt Berwald now. There you can see the 107 car, which I have to say, Boris Gideon, of course, who earlier took a penalty, and Boris Gideon returning from that penalty. But here is our race leader in Coppa Shell&AM. There's our race leader in Coppa Shell. Von Skeltema absolutely has not got, and not let, rather, Axel Sartingen escape up the road. We're into the final 5 minutes of this race. And there you can see Skeltema on the outside of Sartingen. Will he try and get a slingshot on the inside through this double apex? Well, he wasn't able to do that all the time that he's making moves on Axel Sartingen. Manuel Agostner is getting ever closer as well. And what Fons can ill afford to do, Nico, if I may be so bold, is to risk everything to overtake Axel and then lose P2 to Manuel Agostner, who will be ready to pounce.
Oh, absolutely. And he has to be really careful where he leaves himself vulnerable. But knowing Von Skeltema, he will cherish P1 more than he fears losing P2. So I think he will be on it. But obviously, he'll do it with as much caution as he can somehow afford. And there are our leaders in the AM. So that is Kurt Berwald, who leads the championship. He has put himself back into P1. Martinus Richter, the returning driver, he wants to come back in P1, but good showing from him in any event.
I was talking to Kurt Berwald at lunchtime, and he was saying, you know, because he's raced in North America, and I have the privilege of commentating on most of the North American races. Clearly, I'm not in Cota this weekend because I'm here, but he was saying that the European tracks offer so much of a difference in comparison to the wide open spaces, and that is really unfortunate for John Dillon. because, if memory serves me, Nico, Roger Grols has got a penalty. He took a daredevil on the inside, tagged John Dillon, who's been nerfed around, and that's really, really unfortunate. Really unfortunate.
Yeah, I think Roger Grols will, looking back, he'll be very sorry about trying to make that move, because once again he was off the track actually trying to do it, and probably just missed his braking point a little, and then couldn't get his 488 Challenge Evo to a halt before making that contact. But yeah, that was really, really unfortunate for John Dillon, and it also played into the battle in the AMs, because some of the AM drivers got through there cleanly and others had more of an issue and had to stop. Eric Chung being one of those drivers who had to stop. Henrik Hamstrup losing positions there. More drama.
Plenty of it. The incident involving cars 117 and 151 in T4 is under investigation, and I'm sure that that will be of no comfort to John Dillon, who of course was having a terrific race. Now, Manuela Gosner has dropped back a little from von Skeltermar. They're kind of spaced out a little bit now, aren't they? And let's see, we think we've got 2 more racing laps to come. And here is Eric Chung in the 198 car. You can see Eric Chung. Now he's got the Peter Christensen car ahead of him, I believe, which of course will be backmarking effectively.
Yeah, definitely. Eric Chung is running P4 in Shell, which part of that is so many Shell drivers who we lost at the beginning of the race, and also in the incident we just saw. I mean, good race from him, but he was the beneficiary of some of those incidents, and Manuela Gosner still hoping for something to happen in front of her, but the more she puts the pressure on von Skeltermar, the less likely it is for von Skeltermar to get on terms with Axel Sarting, and so she's kind of in a difficult position.
Now, car 117, I can bring you this news, Nico. You'll see it on screen in just a moment's time. It's going to be given a time penalty of 25 seconds for causing a collision and making contact with the car of John Dillon. So that kind of adding to the penalty, which was already being suffered by Roger Grols, unfortunately. So there we are. I mean, Roger is certainly not a... Oh, as Manuela Gosner taking a look at the inside there. Roger certainly won't have done that maliciously. He's not that sort of a driver, but the consequences were really unfortunate.
Yeah, and Axel Sarting, and now that he's released, he's putting in fastest sector after fastest sector, and just put in the fastest lap of the race, which will give him another point. So
yes.
Valuable for him, but obviously his focus will be on this very last lap, and now he's almost a second up the road with the 2 drivers behind him battling it out for P2. So I think Axel Sartingen now has this in hand, or has he?
Axel Sartingen maximising his VAP, and that is value-added points, of course, for being the fastest lap. And that's critical, as now this hasn't finished yet between Kirk Beervold and Martinus Richter, as Beervold, who kept it on the tarmac, and Martinus Richter was on the grass. I half wonder if he hasn't got a puncture, you know, because the back end of the car looks to be slipping and sliding around, Nico.
Yeah, and Isozaki looked like he had overtaken the 2 of them. It's going to be interesting how... And there is more drama.
That's Pino Frascaro gone around in the number 140 car. He gets it pointing back in the right direction again. Well, that was the 107 car of Stefano Marazzi into the side of Martinus Richter, which actually I think has broken something on the Martinus Richter car, which is why we saw that crabbing. I mean, honestly, Nico, for things to happen to those that were in big points hauling scores here has been really, really dramatic today.
Yeah, Axel Sartingen, be careful, because you're the only one basically who's left of those in the front running position without any drama, but he's got only 2 turns remaining. Axel Sartingen, P1, von Skeltermar, P2, Manuela Gosner, barring any disaster, this is how it's gonna stay. Or is it? We have got a time penalty. But we'll tell you about all that in just a moment.
Skeltermar now, it's a drag race. Axel Sartingen can't afford to ease up too much, but he does take the win ahead of von Skeltermar and Manuela Gosner. 4 Coppa Shell drivers. For Coppa Shell&AM, well, it should be Kirk Beervold ahead of Motohiko Isozaki and Stefano Marazzi crossing the line in P3. And but of course he has a time penalty, so that's going to elevate Henrik Kamstrup, I believe, into that P3 position, Nico.
Absolutely, and Isozaki also gets a time penalty, but that is only 5 seconds, which doesn't change his position. I mean, we all have to have a lie down. We have to sort through the results. This was a crazy race if I ever saw one.
But a brilliant race for us.
Yeah, I mean, if you were leading the race and your name was not Axel Sartingen, you were in for it, it seemed like it.
My goodness me. Well, there is Axel Sartingen, the Luex Sportivo Herta Racing. You could see the team in the garage and how delighted they were. And Frank Herta, of course, who is the team principal. Björn Grossman, who's charged with an unenviable task this weekend of coaching Axel Sartingen. The whole combo has worked really, really well. What really impressed me, Nico, if I may say, is the fact that Axel kept his cool throughout that race. He was under immense pressure at times, but he kept his cool, and it paid off. Kirk Beervold, P1 then, for the Coppa Shell&AM drivers. What a race. Ferrari Challenge Coppa Shell never failing to disappoint, and certainly hasn't today. So much action, so much drama. It was like a mini novel in one.
Yeah, I mean that race almost had enough drama and storylines for a full season. And I mean, great racing from our grid of Coppa Shell drivers. Some incidents unfortunate, some over-ambitious. Axel Sartingen always ambitious, and he fulfilled his ambitions with P1. Von Skeltemer certainly not disappointed, I think, overall with P2, even though he may feel like he had the pace at moments to take that P1. Manuel Agostner from a lowly qualifying position up onto the podium. Kirk Beervold continues to be very, very strong in the AMs. Motohiko Isozaki, Henrik Kamstrup gets a P3.
Yes.
But, I mean, so many drivers. Alexander Nussbaumer, Christian Herdwieper, Willem van der Wong, Christian Kinch, Roland Herdner, Roger Groels, Thomas Gostner. All the drivers we lost were in a podium-paying position at some point in the race.
There is our race winner, Axel Sartingen, and beside him, behind him now, it was Frank Herta, who, as I say, is his team boss now. Bear in mind, Manuela Gostner had an awful time of it, torrid time of it in qualifying through no fault of her own. Yep, she took advantage of various things going on around her, but you have to be in there. He's such a character, is Sartingen. He really is. I have to say, he buzzed us last night on the track walk whilst he was on his scooter, didn't he? He tried to get up the inside of me going into turn number 7, and I closed the door, and he had to take to the grass, spun it round nicely, and we then had a conversation. It was very enjoyable. There, Manuela Gostner being congratulated by brother David. She will be, I feel she's got just desserts, really, because qualifying, she would have definitely qualified higher up the order than where she started because of various reasons. Kirk Beervold is going to be congratulated as well. There he is. He's a lovely, lovely guy, Nico, and of course, he's loving the European circuits and racing. There is Giorgio Sonagiotto, driver coach to Manuela Gostner, offering his congratulations. Of course, he will have provoked and motivated Manuela during the course of the race on team radio, and Kirk Beervold there, you can see. Let's get confirmation of the top 3 in each of the classes. The Coppa Shell drivers, it is Axel Sartingen ahead of Von Skeltemer and Manuela Gostner. Of the Coppa Shell&AM drivers, Kirk Beervold eventually taking P1 ahead of Motohiko Isozaki and Henrik Kamstrup. For confirmation of all of everything, do check us out on @Ferrari Races. Enjoy the pit show right now. quite where we got that music bed from. I do not know, but hope you enjoyed the pitch show. We're going to be talking to Axel Sardigan, race winner for Ferrari Challenge Coppa Shell right now.
Congratulations for the race, and as you can see a few seconds ago, push. So it was a good race. You started from the pole and you maintain your position. Congratulations, and can you tell us more about your strategy today?
Yeah, just to stay in front, close the inside, and then there was a crash behind me, I saw in the mirror. But then safety car came, we had the safety car restart, then we had another safety car restart. I think we had 3 race starts or 3 starts. Start is always a little bit critical because you can do a mistake, but the rest was full under control because it doesn't make sense to push that much if you know a safety car is coming and you ruin your tires before. So better you wait till the right moment to push. And then I was going last laps because I thought last laps is not coming a safety car, so I was going for the fastest lap to get this extra point. So all fine. All good, and see you tomorrow, hopefully. And hopefully Dave is happy with the show I presented.
Thank you for your time. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Axel, thank you so much. What a gracious man. Yeah, very happy with the show you've provided, and as always, for the entertaining interview. We will, of course, be also talking to Kirk Beerwold, and here we can see the number 1, 2, 4 car of Kirk Beerwold, who has done a brilliant job and is a super guy to talk to as well. And Kirk Beerwold is standing by with Ludovica.
We are here again on the backdrop. Congratulations for the race. Your smile tell more. And can you tell us more about the emotions to be here now?
It's amazing. I was in first, and then there was big accidents, and I got hit, and I got way back, and then I caught everybody, and passed everybody, and got back to first. It was amazing.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
It was a heck of a drive, Kirk Beerwold. You should be very proud of that, friend. Many congratulations. So there we can see how it all started. Enjoy the highlights right now as we take a breath and maybe just a sip of water or two. See the statistics then from that race. There is just one thing I want to show you, and that is Mutlo Tasev then. Best progress in Coppa Shell&AM, look, up 13 places. Manuel Gosner up 8 places. The surprise is the fastest lap from Coppa Shell&AM actually came from Boris Gideon at 1:38.602. Fastest lap from our Coppa Shell drivers, Axel Sardigan with a 1:37.736. Something's gone wrong with the speed counter, I would suggest, because both Axel Sardigan and Kirk Beerwold were somewhat quicker than the statistics would tell you. Let's go to the podium next. So huge assembly beneath the podium, awaiting the podium ceremonies to get underway. As always, Michele Mambelli will be up there to guide us through the podium. Taking P3 is Manuel Gosner, of course. Taking P2, here comes von Skeltermar. And of course, on the top step of the podium, richly deserved, it is Axel Sardigan. National anthem time as Frank Herter takes his position on the podium as well. Trophy presentations are going to be made by Andrea Albani, who is the managing director of the Misano World Circuit. He will be responsible for making the trophy presentations here. And as always the case, whenever we come to Misano, the trophies are a thing of beauty to behold. And there you can see Manuela Gosner with her trophy. She'll be really pleased with that. Von Skelterma, who drove a fantastic race. And in actual fact, it's Enrico Galliera that is making the trophies. My apologies, Enrico. Ferrari's Chief Marketing and Commercial Officer, whom of course I do know, and we only just saw his face on screen then, he making the trophy presentations to Axel Sardigan, to Von Skelterma, and to Manuela Gosner, and also of course to Frank Herter of Herter Racing. So many, many congratulations to our drivers and teams, of course, and they'll all get together on the top step of the podium for the photographs. And here are the cars that put those drivers in those podium positions. For CDP MP Racing taking P3, Manuela Gosner. Taking P2, the Shark's Teeth fronted, Von Skelterma. And of course taking P1, for Luex Sportivo, Herter Racing, Axel Sardigan. In terms of Drivers' Championship, well, look at this. He went into this race 2 points in the lead of the Drivers' Championship. Now he's got 8 points ahead of Manuela Gosner. We're talking about Mr. Axel Sardigan. Von Skelterma is P3 on 35 points. The rest of the points order you can see. Those, of course, the Drivers' Championship points for Coppa Shell. We will, of course, bring you the Coppa Shell&AM Drivers' Championship points after the Coppa Shell&AM Podium, which we'll be seeing shortly. There's Mr. Pino Frascaro in discussions with the Kessel team about his race during the course of the afternoon. There's Giorgio Sonagiotto once again, who is driver coach to Manuela Gosner. And there you can see the drivers are ready to take the podium. There is, to your very right-hand side in the yellow, is Kirk Bervold. The man we can see right in front of us now is Henrik Kamstrup. And then in the green race suit, it is Motohiko Isazaki. So there is Henrik Kamstrup then, taking his third step on the podium. Motohiko Isazaki, richly deserved P2 for Motohiko. Racing in all of the European Challenge this year, and a delighted welcome we give him. And Kirk Bervold on the top step of the podium. And National Anthem to play out once. Kirk Bervold's team member has joined us from Kessel Racing as well. Will it be Ronnie Kessel? No, it won't. Not sure the volume button on the National Anthem fader is working quite correctly, but there we are. The anthem has played out, and now we do see Andrea Albani, the managing director of Misano World Circuit, to make the trophy presentation. First of all, to Henrik Kamstrup taking P3. Well done, Henrik. Taking P2, Motohiko Isazaki. Brilliant drive, sir. And then on the top step of the podium, and therefore taking the race winner's trophy. And it's about to be presented to him, Kirk Bervold. Brilliant drive, sir. And the drivers once again will all, of course, Kessel receive yet another trophy to add to the really rather huge Kessel Racing trophy cabinet. Meantime, drivers will all get together, top step of the podium for the photographs. And then we will bring you the Ferrari Challenge Coppa Shell&AM Drivers' Championship points. But first, here are the cars that took the drivers there. Henrik Kamstrup then, he took advantage of everyone losing their head around him, to be honest. For Formula Racing, he takes P3. Well done, Henrik. Motohiko Isozaki, we saw how good he was in Valencia, and we've known for years in Asia Pacific how good he is. He's racing in Europe this year and has taken a P2. And then for Kessel Racing, migrating to the European Series from North America, Kirk Beervold taking the race win. Here then the Drivers' Championship points, 38 points for Kirk Beervold. Motohiko Isozaki now is P2, having vaulted four places in the championship. He's on 24. It's Boris Gideon, P3, and Roland Hurtner, who will be ruining his luck today, P4 in the Drivers' Championship. Still, of course, early days in the Ferrari Challenge for season 2023. But, well, if the Coppa Shell race was anything to go by, we've got a Trofeo Pirelli race to come a little bit later on this afternoon. Please make sure you join us for that. And, of course, the Coppa Shell drivers will be racing in their race 2 tomorrow. Please follow us on @Ferrari Races or #Ferrari Challenge. From Nico, from myself, and from everyone else, thank you so much for joining us here in Misano, and we look forward to seeing you for the next race. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.